Shalom and welcome to Temple Talk. Today, the 7th day of the month of Adar Aleph, the first Adar, 5776. It is February the 16th, 2016. This week, parashat Tetzaveh in the book of Exodus. This is Temple Talk from the Temple Institute in Jerusalem. Rabbi Chaim Richman here with Yitzchak Reuven. Today, the 7th day of Adar, is a very special day. It is the day that is both the anniversary of the passing of Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, as well as his birthday. And in fact, there is a very famous thought that our sages express that, Purim, which is coming up, the holiday of Purim, which means lots, literally, because Haman, that wicked Haman that wanted to destroy the people of Israel, he wanted to determine the best time of year, the best month and the best day to commit his genocide and kill the Jewish people. And the lots that he cast fell out in Adar and on the 7th day of Adar, which he considered to be a very auspicious sign, because that is the day of the passing of Moshe Rabbeinu, and therefore he figured, well, this must be a heavenly omen, because they're like vulnerable, unprotected, because their great patron, their protector, is gone. And the sages wryly comments, that's W-R-L-Y, wryly comment about that. Yes, but he didn't realize that that's also his birthday. And that's the famous Midrashic statement. But what does that really mean? It's a really interesting idea. What do they mean? Whoa, well, he didn't realize that it's also Moshe's birthday because he was born, and he passed away on the same day that he was born, which, by the way, is also an idea that our sages talk about, that the years of the tzaddikim, the years of the righteous are complete, that Hashem completes their years. So, but it sounds rather whimsical, or, what does that mean exactly? Oh, well, he didn't realize that. So therefore what? It's a lucky day? In other words, therefore he, got you, like you were outwitted because you didn't realize that it's actually a good day because it's his birthday. So the truth is, this is a very, very deep concept. And it is that, as the Holy Zohar states, the soul of Moshe is like diffused in every generation. It's found in every generation. It's like a guiding spirit, if you will. It's like a muse. In fact, there is an ancient commentary that relates the word muse to Moses, and the idea is that, I'm not pronouncing that correctly. Muse. Sorry. So the idea is that, what does it mean? Well, he didn't realize that Moshe was born on that day. It's like the relationship between the leadership and the quality and the Torah, and the direct connection to the transmission of Torah and the fear of Hashem that Moshe imparted to every single Jew is still going on, and that's what stood as a shield, as it were, against the plotting of Haman. That's the kind of idea that the sages are trying to stress. The very unique relationship between Moshe and his students, the Jewish people. Again, he's not a god, and he's not a Messiah, and he's not supernatural. But this is the mark that a totally selfless, dedicated leader leaves on his people, that he's always with them. He never leaves them. So today, the 7th of Adar, traditionally is observed as a day of a type of celebration, a type of prayer, a special time of supplication. There are special prayers that some congregations say on this day, and in fact, some pious people actually fast on this day as well. And all of this is taking place this month in Adar Aleph and next month in Adar Bet, because, as we've said, there's two Adars in one, and it's kind of maybe like a coin with two sides. Could we put it that way? Or maybe this is the back of Adar. I know that Adar Bet, the second Adar, is really the front of Adar because Purim has to be 30 days before Pesach. And of course, we've discussed the fact that the whole concept of the leap year has to do with making a symmetry between the solar calendar and the lunar calendar. Of course, the Jewish calendar, the Hebrew calendar, the Torah-based calendar is definitely lunar in its nature, which is very unique amongst all the calendars of the world. It's the only one, I think. No, that's not true, because the Muslims also go by the lunar calendar. But the Muslim holidays, for example, Ramadan, moves drastically over an 11-year period.
Because it's not synced with the solar year.
And there's a special mitzvah that is by which the sages of Israel are duty-bound to make a confluence between the solar calendar and the lunar calendar, because even though the Torah commands us in Exodus 12, for example, the root of the commandment, to keep a lunar calendar, we're also commanded that Pesach has to fall out in the Aviv, in the spring. Sukkot has to fall out in the fall. And therefore, there is a system that is a Torah-based system of synchronization. And that has to do with the extra month that's added. So we're in Adar, but we're in the first Adar, which is a pre-Adar, a front-end Adar, or a back-end Adar. And you know what it's like, Yitzchak? There's different dimensions of reality. And I think this is such a beautiful way of looking at it also. You take a Mezuzah.
Yeah.
That we write in commemoration of the words in Deuteronomy 6. There's a positive commandment for the words of Shema Yisrael and of the paragraph of V'haya im Shemo regarding accepting upon ourselves the yoke of the commandments, that Mezuzah scroll is placed on the doorposts of our houses and our gates. And when we walk from one room to another, we see the Mezuzah, and pious people place their finger over the place where Hashem's three-letter name, Shaddai, the name that's associated with passage, is found on the Mezuzah, and kiss it, and it's a sign of honoring Hashem's presence that's with us all the time. So one of the ideas about the Mezuzah on a mystical level is that it provides a certain protection as we pass from one situation to another. In the dynamic of our lives, we go from one room to another, and Hashem's presence is with us all the time. And the name Shaddai, which is the name associated with the Mezuzah, on one level, is said to stand for Shomer Daltot Yisrael, who guards over the doors of Israel, right? But on the back of the Mezuzah, there's a special name that's written over Hashem's name, where it says Hashem Elokeinu Hashem. In the verse Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Hear, O Israel, Hashem, who is our God, is one. Hashem is one. Over those three words in the middle of that verse, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem, there is a code that's written by the scribe on the other side. And over the Yud Hey and Vav Hey of Hashem's name, the scribe writes the letters Chaf Vav Zayin Vav. And over the word Elokeinu, he writes Bet, Mem, etc. What am I showing you? I'm showing you what's called Otiot Shniot. It's one of the ciphers on the deep level of Torah knowledge. It's one letter over. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. The name Chaf Vav Zayin Vav is the other side of Yud Kei Vav Kei, because it's called Otiot Shniot. Mm-hmm. And this is a Kabbalistic idea. And as you know, I personally have served as a scribe for many years, and I've written many countless mezuzot. And this is what we write on the other side, on the back of the cloth of the parchment, those letters. So one way of looking at it is that, okay, the mezuzah, which is associated with Shomer Daltot Yisrael, like Hashem is like the guardian of the doors, right? The mezuzah gives a certain degree of protection as we pass from one situation to another in our lives, going from one room to another. But that's about what I can see. That's about what I can see. That's about what is waiting for me. But what about what's waiting for me that I can't see? What about the other side of what I think is the real? What about the other side? And the other side of what's waiting for me in that room, I'm not referring to a spiritual being or something that's lurking there. I'm talking about, in simple words, the potential. of any situation. There's always something waiting for us, as it were, that we also can't see and that we can't anticipate. And that's another dimension of our lives that's always unfolding. But Hashem is with us there also. Do you see what I'm saying? So in any situation, there is more than one side. There's more than meets the eye. There's more than just what my puny mind can process. There's this side. And there's the other side. There's what I can see and there's what I can't see. So the front of the mezuzah, as it were, is for this side of things. The back of the mezuzah, where Hashem's name is written with the otiyot shniyot, with the secondary letters, the next letter over, is about the next level over of reality. The side that I can't see, the wild side. And therefore, I wanted to say that maybe also this two-sided coin of Adar is also like there's a front and a back. But in any event, it's Zayin Adar. It is the day of the
coming and going. Coming and the going.
Yes, the coming and the going of Moshe and the depth of the acquisition on a soul level of the relationship that Moshe has, the relationship based on selflessness, compassion, willingness to sacrifice himself, like he said in parashat Ki Tisa, which we haven't read yet, which is coming up, right? Which is after the incident, what you like to refer to as the debacle. And I like to refer to as the debacle of the golden calf, where Moshe said, well, if that's the case that you want to wipe out these people, just take my name out of the book. Take my name out of the book. Make it as if I was never even here, because I can't live without my people Israel. That was his level of dedication.
Can't live. Living was without you. Right.
So here we are, the 7th of Adar, in the first Adar, the first side of Adar, whether you call it the front or the back, whatever.
Yep. Wow. Tetzaveh.
Parashat Tetzaveh, speaking of Moshe Rabbeinu, of course, as has been well noted and as has been well thrashed out, the idea is parashat Tetzaveh is the only Torah portion. That's our Torah portion beginning, of course, this week in chapter 27 of the book of Exodus and verse 20. It's the only Torah portion from the time that Moshe Rabbeinu, that Moses appears on the scene, from the time of his birth, the only Torah portion now that doesn't list his name.
It's all about his brother.
Torah portion begins with the words V'ata Tetzaveh et Bnei Yisrael. But we know that Hashem is still speaking to Moshe, who's still receiving all the information on Mount Sinai. And here he's not referred to by name.
Wow, it's all about Aaron, his brother. This parsha, at least the beginning, the clothing that's made for him, so he can serve as the kohen, which means to serve Hashem in the tabernacle. And I just find it so beautiful, the language and the idea being conveyed. Even, there's all different interpretations and very deep interpretations. And even in the simplest, it says, draw your brother near to you and clothe him in kavod v'tiferet.
Garments of glory and splendor.
Glory and splendor. And some interpretations say that the glory refers to the four. I'm not sure if I have this right or backwards, but one of the words glory and one of the words splendor. One refers to the 4 white garments that the Kohen Gadol wears, and one refers to the extra 4 garments that he wears on certain occasions.
There's also an idea that these 2 words reflect the fact that the garments have to be made for each individual Kohen specifically, because they have to fit perfectly. Mm-hmm. And of course, in the Temple Institute, we have a whole project of preparing priestly garments for individual cohanim, for individual men of priestly descent. We started talking last week about the tabernacle that becomes the holy temple, about Parashat Truma, and in general, the whole idea that we stressed in the video lesson last week is the idea of this place as being the place that we all long for, the place that Hashem himself longs for, the concentration of basically the sanctification of the aspect of space in the world, right? And the Holy Temple altogether as we begin to clarify now, as the parashat unfold, as our lives unfold, as history unfolds, we've said so many times how we're not talking here about a building, we're not talking about architecture, we're not talking here about rote or ritual, we're talking about something else altogether. We're talking about exactly and precisely what the world is missing. In the world today, everything that's gone wrong in our world gone mad, it's all about the concealment of the divine presence. And the only thing that rectifies that is the dwelling of the divine presence, the Shekhinah. And that is the message of redemption of all humanity. And that's what the Holy Temple is really all about. Nothing less than that. It's about something that is the culmination of all the generations of all time and all human endeavor and existence. Is coming to a point where, as the prophets of Israel teach us, the unrealized potential of humanity,
the other side,
the reason for why humanity was created in the first place, will be realized when the Holy Temple is built, and we will be given the ability to understand things that we have not until now understood. And this is this time of history that we're in right now. We're in a confluence of time and space and human existence. And the message of the Holy Temple that we're reading about in these parashiot is about the redemption of humanity, which, by the way, is up to us. And that's everything that the Temple Institute stands for and is working on so tirelessly for all of these decades. And it's about these parashiot, it's about Israel taking responsibility and functioning as that nation of priests that God told us we would be at the foot of Mount Sinai. And it's more about Israel's obligation to unify all humanity when the Holy Temple is rebuilt. And that's what we're about. It's about this global rectification and renewal.
So let me just play a devil's advocate, Rabbi. If it's all about global rectification and renewal, and the bringing God's presence into this world, and honoring God's presence in this world, and recognizing God's presence in this world, then the Temple Institute builds vessels. We've recreated the golden menorah, recreate the golden incense altar, which is first commanded in this week's parsha. We've recreated the priestly garments as commanded in this parsha, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What do they have to do with this goal? We say it's not about architecture, and it's not about things, but yet we're recreating things, because that's what the commandments are about. The commandments are about things, recreating an environment. What are we doing here?
I think God has every right in the world to decide how He wants it.
But how do we explain that?
How we explain it is that every aspect of the divine service, from the clothing that the cohanim are wearing, to the consecration of the altar that we read about in the inauguration of the altar in this week's Torah portion, and the priesthood and the tamid offering that is brought every single day. Yes, the korbanot, the word that I will not use, the sacrifices, the offerings on the Holy Temple, that is total elevation of life, of the life force that is so maligned and misunderstood. Why the animals are brought to the altar, and how man is not a beast, and how there is a process of clarification in the nature of the godly soul that man has, and how every aspect of the temple service is designed to jar a person viscerally, and to give the person the opportunity to connect with the divine spark within him, and to start all over again every day, and appreciating and understanding his own humanity and the value and the sacredness of existence and human life. That's what the Holy Temple is all about. And why are we making these things? Why are these things important? Because everything that functions in the Holy Temple serves as a springboard, as a starting point for an expanded consciousness, an enabler. And so the Kohen Gadol, in his vestments, carrying the Urim and Tumim, that expression, the ephod, with the stones of the breastplate of judgment on his heart, that have the ability to function as almost as a motherboard that allow a clear vision of the divine intervention in our lives, right? the golden plate that carries the words holiness to Hashem, that he wears on his forehead, that requires so much intention and kavanah,
Integrity.
and the light of the menorah. Creation, Yitzchak, back in Genesis began with lights. First thing Hashem says is, let there be light. Isn't it amazing that there's a commandment in the Holy Temple every single day for the menorah to be lit? And as the sages again they quip so wryly and so right, spot on. Hashem doesn't need the light of the menorah. That's not why we light the menorah. He doesn't need a light bulb. The light in the menorah is synonymous with the divine presence. It's a continuation of the saga of creation. It's like a microcosm. It's a mini world, and Hashem feeds all of creation. And as it were, the offerings that are brought in the altar are a type of nourishment, not to a pagan, God that wants to be fed, but to the universe. In other words, by elevating by accentuating the differences between man and the animal, and by man grabbing hold of himself and realizing that he can't act like an animal, and that everything in this world is meant to draw us closer to Hashem and to give us an opportunity for another moment of life lived connected to divine purpose, and not wallowing in our own bestiality and in our own hubris and in our own selfishness. Everything in the Holy Temple is designed to completely transfigure and transform us at every moment and elevate us and uplift us. That's what we're reading about in this week's Torah portion. What a privilege we have to live in a generation that, please God, will be the generation to see the rebuilding of the Holy Temple due to the great courage, vision, and fortitude and integrity of those that are against many odds, working towards that goal, and those that are part of it. Because this is the calling of our generation. And, what are we reading about here? Is this some sort of ancient history, or is this Hashem's plan? Is this the playbook? Is this the recipe for a rectification of a world gone mad? And the secret of living life to the fullest and connecting with everything we have to the only truth that exists, which is the unlimited God of Israel. Stay with us. Temple Talk will be right back.
Shalom and welcome back to Temple Talk. Today is the 7th day of Adar, Rishon, the first Adar of the 2 months of Adar this year. It's February 16th. The Hebrew year is 5776. In other terms, it's 2016. And this is Yitzchak Reuven with me in the studio, Rabbi Chaim Richman, Temple Institute. And we've been talking about this week's parashat Tetzaveh. All about, among other things, all about the garments to be made for the priest, for the high priest, the Kohen Gadol, our brother, as the parasha so beautifully opens up with, draw your brother close to you, draw your brother Aaron close to you. What a beautiful message, what a beautiful symbol, which is part of the Kohen Gadol, part of the high priest obligation, responsibility to be our brother, and we need to embrace him. We clothe him in glory and in what's the
splendor.
Other word? Splendor.
And he takes responsibility. He steps into the Holy of Holies on the Day of Atonement, and the entire program of his service on the Day of Atonement is to cause a spiritual reconciliation between God and man, not only Israel. So he atones for himself, he atones for his household, he atones for the entire house of Israel, and he atones for the world. So that's a very Jewish headspace, to take responsibility for others.
And it is a complete rectification of the am I my brother's keeper? rhetorical question that Chaim asked of God after Chaim slew his brother Hevel. Yes, we are our brother's keepers, and this is the symbol, and this is the mission of the Holy Temple and of the Kohen and of the entire service of the Holy Temple, that we are responsible for one another. And this is a holy space, not just because God's presence is there, but it's a holy space because we are at last assuming who we were intended to be when God created man in the Garden of Eden. Now we are taking up that responsibility for ourselves and for one another. And this brings me, Rabbi, to an email that we received just this morning from a listener, which I'd like to read briefly. A man named Jeff from Canada. I heard the February 2nd Temple Talk podcast and was impressed to hear you say there's no occupation, no Palestinian people, and of course, there never will be a Palestinian state. That means Judea and Samaria will remain part of Israel forever, as they have been de facto for half a century. That means that in Judea and Samaria there are no, quote, Palestinians, only human beings equal in the eyes of Hashem. So far, so good. Then why are millions of inhabitants of Judea and Samaria denied the right to vote for the rulers in the Knesset precisely because they are Palestinian? This distinction, you say, doesn't exist. You talk about there being Arab MKs, but these Arab MKs will be the first to tell you that there is no difference between them and those other people on the other side of an imaginary line down the middle of Israel. We got that right. There is an imaginary line down the middle of Israel, which has no basis in reality, because the entire land of Israel belongs to the nation of Israel, and that is in our Torah, and that is the truth. We all agree on that. I think that you agree on that, Jeff.
And they're not voting for members of the Knesset currently because Israel never officially recognized these areas, never annexed them as they should have correctly, but instead it's under military jurisdiction.
Actually, there is something called autonomy, which 98% of the Palestinian in quote,
you're
population,
talking about post-Oslo, where we have divided up the biblical heartland of the land of Israel.
You know what?
Part of these areas of Judea and Samaria are under Palestinian rule of the Palestinian Authority. So why should they be voting for the Knesset members?
Okay, so you know what? It's not our mandate on Temple Talk to get into all this murky politics, because it's ad infinitum. You can go on forever and ever. However, since Jeff basically has accused us of I'll continue. He says a line on the other side of which Jews live, some of who have never gone to shul in their lives, whatever relevance that is. Shul meaning a synagogue. Yet every one of those, quote, Jews in Judea and Samaria can vote for the Knesset, not because they love Hashem, but because they are racially white and not Arab. I don't know what racially white. We have Jews of all different colors, and there are Arabs of all different colors. There's nothing racial here. So tell me, why shouldn't I believe that this is a racial undercurrent behind your apparently holy words to justify making people second-class citizens on a racial basis? Well, I just told you there is no racial basis to our holy words. We don't discriminate against anybody because of their race. We don't discriminate because of their religion. But it happens to be that the land of Israel belongs to the people of Israel, and it's a Torah-based nation. So yes, the state of Israel should annex all the lands of Israel, and anyone who lives in these lands who wants to be a loyal citizen of a Jewish democratic nation that is led by Torah principles is welcome. Anybody who wants to live on the land.
And the Torah has rules regarding Gentiles who live in the land of Israel, making an allegiance to the people of Israel and the land of Israel, and living according to the rules for Noahites, for God-fearing Gentiles in the land. Otherwise, they're not supposed to be here. What does that have to do with racial discrimination? This land belongs to the people of Israel from the very, very beginning of time. When we said that there's no occupation, it means that we're not occupiers, because it means that this always was Eretz Israel, the land of Israel, and again, according to international law, Israel, by repelling an attack against her that came from those territories, as it were, was first of all justified according to international law. Not that I need that. Second of all, again, Judea and Samaria was occupied by Jordan from 1948 to 1967. There never was a Palestinian entity. There is no Palestinian people. And as I quoted from one of the Palestinian leaders, this is a pan-Arab conspiracy to annihilate Israel. Another strategy to delegitimize Israel is to talk about the Palestinian people. There is no Palestinian language, history, archaeology, etc., because there is no distinct Palestinian entity, and there never was historically in the land of Israel. And that's why we are not occupiers in our own land. But as far as this whole accusation that we are racially discriminating, and that as if like, oh, you're pretending that you're holy, but aren't these people equal in Hashem's eyes? Well, let me ask you a question about as far as Hashem's eyes is concerned, and as far as how people are supposed to act. And I mentioned that there are rules about allegiance to the land of Israel if they're going to be living in the land of Israel according to the Torah of the God of Israel, because this is His land. But let me ask you a question: why are they trying to destroy us? Why were there 51 documented attacks? Yeah, including attempts yesterday, including Molotov cocktails, including stonings of the light rail and breaking windows, including so many attempted stabbings yesterday and today that I can't even keep up with it anymore. So what are you talking about when you're talking about our denying the rights of the Palestinian people?
And what are you talking about? That everybody is created in the image of God. Everybody is equal.
So why
everybody
do they
has
act
to behave
like
they're created in the image of God, and everybody has to behave like human beings created in God's image and not like animals. And again, that takes us right back to our subject, the Holy Temple and the service in the Holy Temple, because the entire service, as the Rabbi pointed out earlier, is divine toward bringing out the best in us and every human being in the world. And every human being is invited to bask in God's presence in the Holy Temple, but every human being who wants to be treated like a human being has to treat others like a human being. I'm sorry, that's basic. And trying to murder people is not the way to go about acting like a human being. But everybody is equal. Everybody's created equally, as in they are created in God's image. And
with responsibility.
With responsibilities. And that was the exact thing that God's been trying to teach man since He created man. Yet you have responsibilities. And you can't say, I'll do what I want to do. And you can't say, am I my brother's keeper? No. You have to honor your brother. You have to draw your brother near. You have to clothe him in honor and splendor. And you have to, together as a single beating heart, honor God in that place that He's chosen.
And again, the centrality of the altar in the Holy Temple. Here this week we're learning about the inauguration of the altar, and we learn about the Tamid offering every single day, the offering that takes place in the Holy Temple. And as I mentioned earlier, this whole subject, so misunderstood, so maligned, and so much associated with the mistranslation, the unfortunate translation of korban, whose root means to draw close into a close relationship, translated as sacrifice, which means giving something up, and loss and deprivation, and therefore the whole misconception that people have that, you have to give something up, and that God needs to be appeased, and that whole idea, and the fact is, especially when we look in the world today, we see this tremendous blurring, almost to the point of total obliteration of the divine image in which man was created. And this is an ongoing problem, Yitzchak. It's always been an ongoing problem, and this is not a question of an insensitivity or a callousness or a lack of regard for the animal kingdom, which is many, many times ascribed to, what they call the sacrificial rites in the Holy Temple. Actually, I think that what's going on in the Holy Temple through the offerings of the Torah's prescribed commandments of the offerings in the Holy Temple, I think that is a sanctification of life, and I think that is an elevation of the animals and an appreciation of the sanctity of all life. People say, you know what people say to us? They say, "Oh, it sounds like a big slaughterhouse to me," and then they go and they stuff their mouths with mass-produced, hormone-injected, shortened-lived, fatted meat for their own lust and their own self-gratification. And I feel I can talk like this because I don't eat meat. I'm a vegetarian, and the reason I'm a vegetarian, even though the temple is my life's work, is because I feel that I'm not justified in eating meat for myself until I can bring an offering to Hashem, until I can bring the Passover offering that He commanded. Who am I in the meantime to eat meat? And it's okay. So I took that to an extreme personality. That's okay. But the point is, what's going on in the Holy Temple is about the clarification of the godly soul within man. And that really needs to be understood because it's been completely forgotten. And as opposed to, again, this whole branding that people have of what goes on in the temple as being something savage and primitive. To those that say, well, the world is like to those that say it's like a slaughterhouse, you know what? The world is a slaughterhouse, and it's not a divine, sacred slaughterhouse. It's a slaughterhouse where, upon the altar of every maniac's, twisted psyche, where there's a license to kill that's basically been granted to every morphed human look-alike in this world. The world has become a savagery. The world has become more violent and less respectful of the sanctity of life than ever before, right? And you talk about a world in which, what did someone say? That the most dangerous place in America is a mother's womb. All right? You're talking about a world where there's no regard whatsoever or a thought given to what it means to be alive. Yeah, so in that world, there is a commandment that God, who wants to be in this world, who wants to elevate man, who wants to be close to man, says, in my place, because no two places are alike, because there is a place that I chose to be holy, to call you, to remind you to a holier purpose. And in my place, I want to show you that you're not to live like that you're to appreciate every moment of life, in every aspect of life, and sanctify life. And that's how it works. But because of people like the guy whose letter you read from Canada, if I may say, yes, who twist everything to their own agenda, because of people who are full of hate and venom and want to basically criticize any attempt to actually bring godliness into the world, because of that, so everything has become totally, totally twisted. And that's the educational work of the Temple Institute. In addition to actually beginning to build the temple, we need to educate the world as to why we need the Holy Temple. What is this all about? We're reading about a menorah. We're reading about an altar. We're reading about clothes that are meant for Aaron. What is this? What is this? Some secret society? What is this like? What is this? The Grand Poobah? What is this like? This is what is this going to do? I'll tell you what it's going to do. What it does is it unites humanity. As if Isaiah, who's a little bit smarter than, what's his name again?
That would be Jeff.
Jeff from Canada? Yeah, Jeff, we traced your IP. Isaiah, if he's a bit smarter, and he says that all nations of the world will flow to the Holy Temple, and they'll say to each other, let's go up to the house of the God of Jacob. Not the house of the God of Ahmed. Even the Palestinians, if there is such a thing, right? These people living here, these Arabs living here who, as a strategy, call themselves Palestinians, they're also welcome to come to the Holy Temple and pray there to the God of all of us, the house of the God of Jacob, right? Because the whole point is that what the Holy Temple brings about is this revolutionary idea of the redemption of all humanity and the breaking down of every barrier that has held mankind back from living according to its potential. That's what this is all about.
Wow. So, can we get back to some of the details, Rabbi?
Some of the details that we have in this week's Torah portion fills us with so much longing and excitement, because we have had the privilege of being part of this process in our generation for so many years now. We're talking about the clothing of the high priest, and we at the Temple Institute have actually created the garments for the high priest. The blue robe, right? The robe of tchelet with the golden bells and the woven pomegranates. The ephod, the tzitz, the golden headplate of the high priest. The choshen, and the concept of the Urim v'Tumim, right, the lightnings and flashings of the breastplate, which of course is a function of the Shem HaMafurash, of the ineffable name of God, that is used as a meditative device by the high priest, who, in times of national urgency, when faced with the responsibility of a decision that has to be made on behalf of the entire nation, the King of Israel can utilize the choshen, the breastplate of the high priest, and its aspect of the Urim v'Tumim, which is a function of the meditation of the high priest upon the sacred name of Hashem, which is 72 letters long, to reach a state of what's called dveikut, which means a clinging to God. It's a prophetic level of enlightenment in which the answer to his query is spelled out for him through the agency of the letters of the tribes of Israel, the names of the tribes of Israel that are engraved on the stones of the breastplate. That process is called the questioning of the Urim V'Tumim. And that, you know what we've just said? We've just said something that is you know, a reflection of over a decade, just this one project of research, how it took so long just to identify conclusively what the stones of the breastplate are, because there are so many different translations and misunderstandings and interpretations of the names of the stones in the breastplate that we read about in this week's Torah portion that are so elusive, that are so hard to identify, and how it took so long. It's like a mystery thriller to hear of the details of how we needed to unravel the identity of these stones today in order to make an actual functioning breastplate that would be kosher according to Torah law. What these stones are, the golden settings, the weavings, the dyes that are used in the choshen, the golden thread, how that's produced, the engraving of the names of the tribes on the stones, which was done in the time of the first temple through the agency of a creature called the shamir, which is a very amazing type of snail that had some sort of acidic secretion from its body that was able to carve out the names of the stone without actually diminishing from the surface of the stone. And there is a prohibition against using metal on the stones, and how the identity of that creature was lost from the world before the destruction of the first temple, and how we've been able to duplicate the exact same reaction, the exact same finished product with laser technology. And the whole concept of that's a good springboard to talk about the whole concept of the amazing technology that we've been able to harness in order to fulfill these commandments of renewal, of preparing for the Holy Temple. And it's an ongoing process that we invite all of our listeners to take a part of. As we mentioned last week, the uplifting, terumah, is the elevation of our personal self, our personal possessions, our personal pride, that which we think is ours, and giving it to Hashem and saying, yes, I also want there to be a place. I also am ready to move over and say, yes, I'd like Hashem's presence to be in this world, and I honor the things that He tells us to do. That's what this is all about.
Before you continue, Rabbi, about the Urim and Tumim, I would just like to say that, yes, on our Facebook page, we are presenting every day beautiful images and of the clothing, the garments, and the vessels that we've created for everybody to look at. We are putting up short videos of the actual process of the creation, the construction of these vessels and garments, behind the scenes of video footage that's never been seen before. And we invite everybody to come, where it's sort of like a festival, a holiday of the asiyah, of the work of building the kelim, the vessels that we have been involved in for 3 decades. And because of the parshiot, Trumah, Tetzaveh, etc., the rest of the book of Exodus is all about the tabernacle, that we are featuring these. It's a celebration for us, and it's also an invitation for people to become more familiar with what our accomplishments are and what we're trying to achieve, and how you can be part of it, how you can help, and how you can actually contribute to our efforts.
And I don't get how some people marginalize this whole world that we're talking about of the building of the Holy Temple, how they mythologize it, how they marginalize it, how they diminish it, how they gobsmack it or sidestep it and say, well, that was then, but it's not relevant any longer, and how they rewrite the whole Torah. I don't get how they do that when we have verses like this in chapter 29, the end of chapter, where we read, Hashem says, I shall set my meeting there with the children of Israel, and it shall be sanctified with my glory. I shall sanctify the tent of meeting and the altar, and Aaron and his sons shall I sanctify to minister to me. I shall rest my presence among the children of Israel, and I shall be their God. They shall know that I am Hashem their God, who took them out of the land of Egypt to rest my presence among them. I am Hashem their God. That's pretty clear to me that this is something that's really close to God's heart. So it becomes a whole cottage industry of our own somehow self-perpetuation and our whole syndrome of denial and our whole apology, that we somehow have managed to look at these verses differently and say, well, it must just be a very beautiful idea, but it's not for now. But that's not how it works.
It's all pretty basic, and it's all pretty crucial, and God's desire to be our God hasn't changed. So why should we diminish what He's commanding us to do? And why
what drives us?
Powerful?
What drives us to be so?
Why is this concept, why is this potential reality any less powerful and provocative today than it was thousands of years ago? We say it's not. Here's the music. Thanks for being with us. Temple Talk.